Hey, scientists, get your lab coats on and your goggles ready, as today we are going to explore the physical characteristics of plants that can help them survive in different environments. But before we get into that, let's first think about what essential question are we going to be answering today. Now, let's talk about our essential question. Remember, essential questions in science and in different lessons can help us think about what we already know about a topic, and it helps us connect to new ideas that we're going to learn today to help us produce a new thought about the topic. Our essential questions will be focused on our different science topics. So look for keywords. In those keywords, the minute you see them and recognize them, I want you to think, what do I already know about this topic? Once you have that in your mind, you want to look at the question again to see what we're trying to answer today or what are we trying to answer about that topic. It's important to remember that an essential question is like a goal as well. By the end of our science lesson, you should confidently be able to answer the essential question. Let's go over our essential question for today. We are going to be looking at answering three different essential questions today. Let's write these on the whiteboard too, so that even after the video, we remember what are some things we're trying to look for while we are experimenting and exploring today. Our first essential question is, what basic needs must be met for plants to survive? I want you to say that question with me. What basic needs must be met for plants to survive? We've already talked a little bit about plants and their needs. We've even talked about animals and their needs. Today, you're going to be using your past knowledge with this. We're going to be learning a little bit more about specifics with plants, and we'll tie that past knowledge to our new knowledge. Let's look at the second question. Listen as I read it first. How do the different parts of a plant help it meet its basic needs? Read that question with me. How do the different parts of a plant help it meet its basic needs? Today, we'll review the different parts of the plant and we're going to talk about how those basic needs can be met, especially when those plants are in different places all over the world. And our last essential question for today that we're focusing on: what comparisons can we make about the physical characteristics of plants that help them survive in different environments? That's a long, essential question. Read it with me, one word at a time, nice and slow. Here we go. What comparisons can we make about the physical characteristics of plants that help them survive in different environments? Nice job, scientists. Remember, at the end of today's lesson, we want to look to answer these three questions. It's almost like our three goals that we want to reach by the end of today's lesson is to be able to come up with our own answers for the questions. Sometimes there's not a wrong answer, and sometimes you'll have different answers as your classmates. It all depends on what we explore and what observations we make as individual scientists. For our intro activity today, we are going to divide up into some smaller groups. So pair up with somebody now. You can pause the video. You can have as many people as 3 people in a group. Your groups will each need one whiteboard and one marker to write. I'm going to show you an image of 2 different types of plants. I'll tell you the type of plant that they are. You're going to tell me the similarities that you see between the 2 plants. One of them will be a baby version of the plant, and one of them will be a mature version of the plant. You want to focus on how the pictures resemble each other. Even though some of them are babies and some of them are mature, they share some likelinesses as well. Let's do one practice one together. On the screen, you see a picture of baby cactuses and mature cactuses. The baby cactuses are on the left in the small pots. The mature cactuses are the ones that are outside. I want you to list some resemblances you see between the 2 cactuses. Pause the video. If you need somebody in your group to come up and confirm something, send one person up to confirm it. Not the whole group needs to come up. When I look at the 2 pictures of the cactuses, some different physical characteristics that I notice are both of the images look to have needles on the cactus. Those are the little pokey things that if you've ever touched a cactus, they'll probably prick you. You can also tell looking at the different cactuses that they come in all different shapes and sizes. Some of them are circular, some of them are tall and more like a cylinder. I also noticed that the color of the plants looks the same. It's just their size has seemed to change. They started off smaller and they got bigger. You could have made some different observation as well. If you have some different observations, pause the video and share them as a class now. The next few plants that we do, I'll tell you what they're called, and your job is to pause, write it down on your whiteboard, see how many similarities your group can get, and then share it to the class. On the left is a picture of a baby rose bud. On the right is a picture of a rosebud, multiple of them, when they're fully grown. What are some similarities you notice about these images? These are example of evergreen trees. You might see these around the holidays at the end of the year. On the left is a picture of a baby evergreen tree, and on the right is a picture of a grown evergreen tree. There's multiple grown evergreen trees in the right picture. Pause and take time now to list out the resemblances you see. Now, before you guys get into your own exploring today, we are going to look at some different types of plants that are all over the world. First, we'll start with some plants in Texas, and then we'll look at some plants that are in colder places around the world. Do you think they'll look different or the same? Let's get into it. Different parts of the plant that we want to try and remember are the flower, which is the top part of the plant. Sometimes where we see the colorful part of it, that's the part that smells good too. The stem of the plant, that's the strong part that holds it up. The leaves that might be on the plant, and the roots on the plant as well. That's what holds it in place to the ground. We're going to think about those as we talk about some of these plants around the world. Let's look at plants in Texas first. The first plant or flower that we're going to look at is called the black-eyed Susan. Now, these bloom a lot, and when they bloom into a bright yellow like you can see. It's a daisy-like flower. These flowers are native to Texas. It's a wild flower and it's drought tolerant. That means if it doesn't rain too much, these flowers are able to survive. They also attract a lot of butterflies. So if you ever see them outside, keep an eye on them for a little bit and you might see a butterfly yourself. These flowers are great in Texas because sometimes it goes long periods of time without a lot of rain happening. So to be able to be drought tolerant means these plants are going to hold up. Their stems are going to hold and their flowers won't wilt. If the flowers do wilt, it's really easy to maintain the flowers by just removing the dead flowers and new ones will bloom. The next plant we're going to look at is the Texas pimento. This tree even has Texas in its name, and that's for a certain reason we'll get to in a second. This tree can grow up to be 50 feet tall, but it takes a long time. It's a very slow growing tree. The reason this tree is called the Texas pimento is because in South Texas, it's the only place in the United States where this palm can grow naturally. So the top of the tree where you see the green parts, it grows naturally only in the south parts of Texas. That's because the right types of soil that the roots are growing in are able to support the tree. It's getting just around the right amount of sunlight and it's able to survive in enough of the drought or not enough water. So having this in a tropical place or a landscape is able to provide lots of shade for people, but it's also able to survive for quite a while. But how do plants survive in other places? And why are some plants only surviving in Texas? If we think about plants in places that get really cold and it actually freezes there or snows, different types of oak trees or trees like evergreen trees, they have different sorts of characteristics that help them survive. In the fall time, these oak trees will lose their thin, flat leaves and they'll be able to retain more water inside them. That helps these trees make sure their roots are nice and strong in the ground and they're able to survive themselves and prepare for tons of snow. The plants are left with bristles on the or little thin leaves on the outside that allow it to support the different types of trees. I even have a plant on my porch. It's called a marigold. In our seasons here, the marigold does very well in the summer. It gets lots of rain, which is able for it to survive. It gets lots of sunshine outside of my porch, and the leaves and flowers are able to bloom wonderfully. After it gets cold in the fall time and the winter starts to come, my marigolds have died out. Not only did the flower, the stem, and the leaves and the roots all die, but the marigold has retained enough in the seed of itself that next summer, when time comes around, I'll be able to replant the seed and regrow my marigolds. These are called annual plants. Today, you are going to be looking at some different plants, and you're also going to be reviewing the vocabulary for the specific types of plants and why those parts of the plant are crucial to supply the plant what it needs to survive. As you review these different materials, make sure you're making observations and taking note of anything that's important to remember. Take your time, look closely, and use your senses as you observe. Good luck, scientists, and I'll see you soon.